Hello and welcome to this video on while and do while statement in Java. In this video, we'll see about what is while loop and what is do while loop and how to perform nested while and nested do while loop statements here. What is looping statement? So in computer programming, loops are used to repeat a block of code. For example, if you want to show a message 100 times, then you'll use a loop. It's a simple example. You will achieve much more with loops and we'll be seeing in the forthcoming lectures. The types of while statement. So there are two types of while statements. So while statement and do while statement. And the combination of while and do while or multiple whiles and multiple do whiles is called nested loop statements. So let us understand them with a simple example. First, let us understand the requirement for a looping statement using this code. So our task here is to print hello world 10 times. So how would you do that? I'll go system.out.println and hello world. And what do? I now have to type it again. A better coder would, like copy this text and paste it 10 times. So hello world is printed 10 times here. So now let us try to run this program. As you can see, hello world is printed 10 times. So a good programming language reduces the redundancy in code by using one of its methods. So one such method to reduce this redundancy of us typing hello world again and again is by using a while loop. So how do I do that? So the first thing that you need to take care is initializing variables to control the number of times it is printed. So we need a initializing variable, initializer, and I started with 0, and then I'll need a ending variable n. That is, I need to print it 10 times. Starting from 0 to 10, I needed to print it 10 times, right? So these how I declare these variables. Now, instead of typing hello world 10 times, I'll just have it for one time and I'll put it inside a while loop. So how do I do that? I do that by declaring while I is less than or equal to n, and I put my curly brackets. So what happens, until this particular condition is met, I'll have my while loop the statements that are written inside this brackets. So now when I put this statement inside these brackets, it is going to loop until this condition is not met. So my initializing condition is int I is equal to 0 less than n. So 0 less than 10, yeah, it's true. So this statement would be printed. Now, how do I control this number of loops? I do that by increasing the value of my initializing statement until it reaches 10. So as we learned in the older videos, we have the statement called I++. So that is nothing but it increases the value of I for every loop. So what happens? I have an initializing statement, I have a breaking condition, and I have an increment statement. So these three statements together form our while loop. So let us understand how the code is printed. As you can see, I've used my print statement only once, and now it has printed 10 times using the while loop. Now let us try another example to understand the power of while loops. So instead of printing a statement, what if I want to print my statement from 1 to 10? So if you can look closely, you can see that the value of I increases from 1 to 10 and the number of times is printed. So what do? Instead of having my output statement, I'll just print my value of I. So since my starting condition is from 1, I would initialize my variable from 1 and increment it for each loop until it reaches the value of n equal to 10 and it breaks out. So let us now try to run this program. As you can see, the output that we are getting is a printed value of 1 to 10. This can range from 100 to 200 lakhs or how much ever long the value is. So this reduces the redundancy of code a lot. As you can see, the numbers are printed until 200. So this is the power of a looping statement. What if I want to print the values from 10 to 1 in reverse order? Things that you need to notice here is that our statement moves forward using this lesser than condition. So what do? My initializing condition would be 10 and my finishing condition would be 1. So now for this to loop, I need to change the sign. So try to understand why we change the sign here. So our starting condition is 10 and 1. For this to pass, 10 must be greater than or equal to 1 for it to pass, and the value of 10 must decrement for every loop until it reaches the value 1. So instead of I plus plus, we'll have I minus minus. Yes. Now by using this statement, we can now print the values from 10 to 1. As you can see, the values are now printed from 10 to 1. So now we'll try to understand do while loop. The do while loop is similar to the while loop. However, the body of do while loop is executed once before the test expression is checked. So let us understand them with the example. So to initialize any variables for the conditions, it is very similar to while loop. We have an initializing variable int I is equal to 0 and we have our ending variable n equal to 10. So we initialize our variables and the syntax for do while loop is do curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets you'll have the statement that you want. So in this example, I want to print the hello world 10 times using do while loop. So I have system.out.println and I'll have hello world. So once this is done, outside my curly brackets, I'll have my while statement and my testing condition. That is nothing but my initializing condition should be always less than or equal to the ending condition. And the difference here is that you have a semicolon at end of the while loop. And now inside the do, you will have the incrementing condition. So I plus plus would be inside this. If you understood while loop, the structure of do while is just the opposite of while loop. You have your statement first and increment later, and the condition is checked later. And initializing is normal like while loop. So now when I try to print these values, I have my hello world 10 times. The same for, printing the value from 0 to 10. And I try to do that. It is very similar to while loop. So 0 to 10 is now printed. So why do we need do while? So there might be conditions while you're coding that the first time when something is performed, you need not check the conditions as the conditions might fail. So in such cases, whenever you want the statement to be printed at least once without checking the conditions, you go for a do while loop. And based upon your preference, you can choose while or do while until and unless your logic of the code is not disturbed. So this is about do while loops. So now we'll try to understand the nested while loop statements. So nested can be done for both while and do while. If you know the structure, it is going to be similar. Here we'll be using while loop. So let us understand why there will be requirement for a nested statement. For example, here we have a star formation that needs to be printed. So normally you can use your system.out.println to print these statements. What if the user specifies the number of rows this has to continue? For such cases, we go with nested while loop. How do we do that? First, the declaring variables is similar. We have our initializing condition int I is equal to 0, and our stopping condition. Here we'll try to print the star formation for a 3 by 3 triangle. So we'll have it until 3. And now inside our nested, first we'll try to initialize a while loop. While our condition here would be I less than n, because when I reaches n, I don't want that particular statement to be printed. So I do that, and now I'll have another while statement, and I'll explain you why. So we'll have another variable j less than n. So I need to initialize another variable j, but that j would be inside my while loop, int j equal to 0, and I'll check if my j value is less than or equal to I and print as such, and I'll open my while loop. Now inside my while statement, I'll have my system.out.println and a star and a space. By doing this, now we'll need an increment statement, j++, and for I, I'll need I++. So the last thing that you need to consider is having a end else statement. The last change that we do is, from first we were using the statement println, right? So println, what it does, whenever you provide a star, it goes to the next line. We don't want that, so we'll use the normal system.out.print statement. So we get our star printed. Now when I try to increase the value of my ending condition, the number of stars gradually increases. As you can see, 5 stars are printed. Now when I want 7 stars would be printed. Yeah, so let us understand this code. So what have I done? I've used two while statements. I've used my one outermost while loop as an anchor to control the number of rows it has to have. So this I less than n will control the number of lines this loop repeats. And inside my while loop, I have another while loop, the innermost while loop. This while loop will now handle the columns that are done. So in my first loop, I want my star to print only one time, and my second loop, it should only print 2 times, and the third loop, I want it to print 3 times. So if you notice carefully, the number of times star that needs to be printed is exactly the value of I of the outer for loop. So my first statement will have 1, 2, 3. The number of rows is directly proportional to the number of stars required in the each row. So what do? I initialize an inner while loop j less than or equal to I. So what this condition does is it starts a loop fresh in the same line and checks how many number of stars are required by using the value of I from my outermost while loop and prints the star that many times. So my increment statements j++ and I++ is used to control this loop and stops it from going to infinite loop. So our conditions are tested here. So this might feel overwhelming. I want you to take the nested while loop part of the video to watch it again to understand what happens inside this, to have a better understanding. Hope this video was helpful. Thank you.